So, is it better to be the lone wolf type of prepper, or do you want to have a tribe, family, people around you? Well, this is something we've covered in previous videos, but I think it's worth revisiting yet again. Before you go on, remember you have my books available in Amazon, following the links there below: Surviving the Economic Collapse, Street Survival Skills, books that will help you get better prepared. Here we have the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy. First time I see this guy, I'm just playing the video because he makes some excellent points and basically verify and just repeat yet again things that I've learned already through other sources. So I'm not just trusting on a guy just because it says doctor, okay? Listen to what he has to say and let me know if you agree with him or not. I can tell you that it basically says everything that I've seen already.
Is a public health issue. And I would say it has risen to the level of actually being a public health crisis. And it's also extraordinarily common. Around 1 in 2 Americans are experiencing loneliness.
That I didn't know. 1 out of 2?
Persistent,
yeah, that
when
is.
it's extreme, it can actually come with significant
And let me say, 1 out of 2 are feeling loneliness. So this may well be that 1 out of 2, it's 50%. It's fucking insane. 50% of people are feeling alone. Now, I will assume here, and I think this is a very safe assumption, that doesn't mean always that they don't have anyone. It may be someone, a man that got divorced and he has a couple kids he never actually gets to see. Same goes for a woman. It could also be a teenager that has no communication whatsoever with his parents, or very little, has no friends. All of this would basically, I assume here, and I feel this is a very safe assumption, loneliness would be basically, are you feeling alone? And someone that says yes. I mean, if you ask me, do you feel alone? No. Fuck no. I'm always surrounded by my family all the time. If anything, it's a little bit like too much at times. You'll need a little bit of time to think. But this is probably people that say, yeah, I do feel alone. At times I do feel alone. Is it good? Well, this is what he says.
Risks. We now know that loneliness is associated with an increased risk of anxiety and depression and suicide, but it's also associated with an increased risk of heart disease and premature death, as well as dementia. And when you actually look at the mortality impact, at the increased risk of premature death related to loneliness, it's actually comparable to the increased risk of premature death related to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's greater than the risk associated with obesity. And so there are real mental and physical health consequences to loneliness.
That is crazy. And again, I read that before watching this video, that being really alone, being a person that suffers from anxiety and depression because of how alone you are, it has the same health impact. I mean, it's probably not going to be the same in terms of your lungs being, but it's basically like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Is it exactly like that? Is it exaggerated? I can tell you, people that I've seen through life that are alone, they're not exactly healthy. So I will go with that. I will go that if you are consistently feeling alone and you really are alone in life, especially as you grow older, yeah, I will buy that.
In the last few decades, it's changed at a really rapid pace. We move around a lot more. We change jobs often. We are using technology that has profoundly changed how we relate to
especially for kids,
and interact with one another. And while some of this has been good, it's created more opportunities and created efficiencies, there's also in many cases been a toll on our relationships. When we leave communities, for example, that we grew up with, when we change jobs often, for example, leave communities at work, that does take a toll on our relationships. For a long time, we had institutions and organizations and efforts in communities that brought people together, volunteer organizations, synagogues and churches and mosques and temples, other organizations that just...
How crazy is it that the U.S. Surgeon General is admitting that, yeah, because we turn away from faith, and this is the thing, it doesn't matter really if you believe much or not. The fact is, you gather in a same building every week, at least once a week. You form part of a community. You say hi. You organize things. You participate. The key word is you socialize. Churches would force you to socialize and look at other people in their faces and talk to them. For a lot of people, and I mean for a lot of people, especially older, lonely people, going to church is the only thing they have going for them. And the more of that disappearing, the rarer it gets, the lonelier people end up getting. It's insane.
Brought folks together. There has been diminishing participation in those institutions over the last 4 to 5 decades, and that's just one more contributor to the overall loneliness that people are feeling. I also think that the polarization and division that people feel on the ground is actually making it harder for people to dialogue with one another.
True,
and this
again.
comes full circle to what we talked about in the beginning. In a time of rapid change, one of the ways we process change is we talk it through with one another. But if we feel our dialogue is poisoned, if we're scared that we're going to use the wrong word, that we're going to, talk to someone we disagree with and it's going to blow up into a major fight because we don't know how to do that anymore, and this is highly problematic for society. So in my view, rebuilding social connection and community is actually at the heart of what we need to do to address this polarization, because I'll tell you one thing, it's hard to hate people up close when you know them, when you have a relationship with them, and we need to rebuild those relationships for the sake of individual health, but also societal health. When it comes to mental health, we have no time to lose. This is a defining public health challenge of our generation.
I think this little clip of this guy is fantastic. He is addressing some key issues here. The last part about how people are polarized these days, you cannot even have a different opinion. I don't agree with you. Okay, we'll never talk again. That is fucking insane. It used to be that, okay, yeah, the famous will agree to disagree on that, buddy. But the thing is, you could call that person your buddy because he's your friend, he's a coworker, it's someone that, it may be a family member that you have a disagreement with, and it's not the end of the world. Now, with all of the cancel culture, with all of the woke, radical, Marxist mentality that you just cannot allow anyone that is not absolutely inclusive and all of this shit that I want you to be, that insanity, as you've probably heard so many times, woke, it's a cult. It does not allow for anyone to say, no, I don't buy that. No, I don't agree with you. No, that is actually not correct. Scientifically proven to be the exact opposite of what you're saying. Oh, but you're a hater, you're a racist, you're a discriminator, you're an anti... That's how we live. And it's not even with real people, it's online. Sometimes you're even arguing with a bot. That's how crazy this has gotten. And the fact that kids are more and more on their cell phone, it just makes everything a lot worse. Don't give your kid a cell phone until it's absolutely inevitable because of the different pressures and needs that he will eventually have. I see babies. I see little kids in strollers. The parent hands over the cell phone or the tablet so as to calm them down. Don't give a kid a tablet. He doesn't need it. Have a TV and have cartoons for a while. A little bit every once in a while or whatever. But limits, be aware of how much time a kid is spending in front of a screen. It's a lot easier. I know that it's a little bit maybe messier if you have that going on in the living room, but at least you see how much of that is going on. If you just give a kid a tablet or even worse, a cell phone, and they just hide away in a corner and hours go by without you realizing that he's just dying while being absorbed by that fucking screen, then it's a lot worse. And then you have people that are just dead inside, like Martha Gale, that will say, fewer people are marrying. That's cause for celebration, not state intervention. So this is, again, the radical woke agenda, the radical left-wing agenda of let's destroy society. Let's make sure people don't marry. Let's make sure people don't reproduce. Let's make sure humanity just ends. Which is the greatest threat we're facing right now. This is no joke. The greatest threat humanity is facing, it is right now, and it's the total fertility rate dropping below replacement rate. We are already there. We're just about to cross that line of, we don't have a number that replaces the people that already exist. And this is inevitable. This is like the damn Matrix where, this is inevitable because the trend cannot be changed. You cannot convince people to get married and have kids. Oh, Fernando, you don't need to get married, but you still need to have kids. If you have the option of not getting married, not having kids, you have the option of executing the baby in the mother's womb, which is fairly popular these days. All of that and the idea of, oh, but I'm a responsible adult. I don't have the money for a family. I don't have the money for a kid. I'm the average American household where I have just enough money to send 1.2 kids to college. That's the kind of thing we're thinking of right now. And that's why we are at this stage. And it just keeps on getting worse. And the idea of you fixing that with what? With immigration, you're insane. That will not work. And if you look at this in the case of the United States, it is, there's a trend across the entire continent. It's only just a couple of countries that really have higher fertility rates. Everything else is kind of the same. Africa being, but you know that the interesting thing about Africa, the replacement rate in Africa is not 2.1. It's about 3.6 because of diseases, war, the lower standards of living. In Africa, the replacement rate is about 3.5, 3.6 because of how many kids just don't make it. So we're looking at a mess that even the International Monetary Fund admits aging is a real population bomb. This is a crisis by any way. Now, it's a crisis on the individual level, as the doctor surgeon here was explaining, in a very articulate manner. I think that was a great presentation. I suggest you watch it again, look it up in the article. This is also on the macro level, on the global level. We're kind of screwed. We're tending towards this, and the aging population, the lack of people, the lack of workers, the fiscal implications of all of this. Unless you're very old, you will live to see this. But for this video specifically, in terms of your own life, your own circumstances, no. Most definitely not. You don't want to be the lone wolf survivor. All of that bullshit, leave that for Hollywood. You need a tribe. You need a group of people. That's gonna be your family, your wife, your husband, your kids, your grandkids eventually. The more of that you have, the more solid that tribe of yours is, the better chances you have, not only of making it through, any crisis you may be facing, and the way I see it as a father myself is, I'm building something for them and for future generations. The more of that they have, it's not gonna be just brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles. The more of that they have, and the closer they stay together, the stronger they will be. The more likely not only will they be of facing challenges successfully, but the better quality of life, the happier they will be. If you're alone, it fucking sucks. Someone will tell you there, oh yeah, I love being, no you don't. I like being alone. And there's even limits to that. There's a point at which you need people, right? It's very personal, and yeah, I get all of that because I'm that guy. But there's limits to that. Being alone all the time, that is a damn nightmare. That is terrible. And it has obvious health implications. It's not just that this guy here is saying it. There's a bunch of studies that confirm it. But besides, it's one of those things, just like with the aging population, you go for a walk, you see there's a bunch of old people. There's really not nearly enough little kids running around, right? And there's exceptions and so on. And there's places if you go to a school, right? But in general, you see all of this with your very own eyes. And in the same way, you see that people that are lonely, people, older people that are like, there's people that sit in parks just trying to watch a little kid play. They don't have any grandkids, they're alone, and they just go to a park and try to look, maybe even try to engage in conversation with strangers. They do that. You never had some old person try to talk to you in a park when you were there with your kid in the swing? Happens all the damn time. So we are facing a challenge which is a self-inflicted wound. We did this to ourselves, being selfish, having companies promote the idea of all that matters is that you be happy, and In their own language, that means you spend money on crap you don't need so as to make me rich. Basically, that's what it comes down to. The destruction of the family as the foundation of society as we know it, which is only being accelerated by these radical left-wing lunatics like our friend here, Martha Hill. Fewer people are marrying, that's cause for celebration. You have to be, no soul left there, lady. But guys, that's basically the answer. No, lone wolf, no, that's great for the Hollywood movies, but in reality, you see it time and time and again. It's not just when there's a challenge. Of course, when there's hard times, more people to help will be better. But besides that, if there's not a challenge to be facing, still, you don't want to be alone. See you on the next one. Take care.